Chapter 51 Blacklight Virus Experiment. In the Umbrella Base in New York, the United States. Li Feng looked at the palm-sized small arc reactor in his hand and nodded with satisfaction. However, apart from the miniaturization of the arc reactor, Ivan basically has no other black technology. He had no interest in plasma whips at all. Although plasma whips can cut through most substances, with so much energy provided to two whips, they can only be used for close-range combat. It would be better to use them to launch electromagnetic cannons. That power is decidedly greater than that of plasma whip. Now that we have a small arc reactor, we can start the Sentinel project. However, Mystique's genes have not been fully analyzed yet, and the RST generation of Sentinels may not have the ability to absorb and transform. Da-da-da. Just then, the sound of high heels was heard. I saw Philia wearing a white sterilization suit and walking quickly in high heels. Boss, the experiment of the blacklight virus is ready. Li Feng put down the arc reactor in his hand. Then let's get started. After a while, he followed Philia to the door of the laboratory. There are already more than a dozen Scientist researchers waiting here. Good evening, Dr. Li. Dean Li, Dr. Philia. Hi boss. Li Feng looked at this group of Scientist researchers who had followed him for nearly 10 years, and felt a little emotional. When IRST traveled to the Marvel world, I was penniless. Not to mention starting a company, even eating was a problem. Although Umbrella was established later, there were no high-level talents willing to follow him, so he could only recruit these students from the university. Although they do not have the ability to independently develop a project, they are still capable of doing some general research work. Let the experiment begin. Yes. Soon, everyone began to go to their respective posts. Some people were recording the experiments, some were preparing the nutrient solution, some were pushing the experimental subjects, and some were preparing the blacklight virus. There was also a group of fully armed security personnel around to ensure that no accidents would occur in the experiment. However, Li Feng did not have much hope for this experiment. When the T-virus was RST being developed, even with the support of Red Queen's mature data, it still took several failures before it was successful. After all, failure is the norm in biochemical experiments, and success is just an accident. New York time, 9:34, the experiment begins. 9:35, subject number 1 is ready. At 9:37, begin injecting high-quality nutrient solution into the target test subject to ensure the subject's physical strength and nutrition. At 9:49, the subject's physical value reached its peak. At 9:50, start injecting the blacklight virus. At 10:02, the subject opened his eyes. It should be that the blacklight virus devoured the sedative. At 10:05, the subject's body temperature began to rise rapidly. This should be due to the subject's antibodies taking effect. At 10:14, the subject's body temperature reached 63.8 degrees. My God, this is far beyond the limit that humans can endure. At 10:17, the subject began to struggle vigorously, and a black substance appeared all over his body. At this point in the experiment, Li Feng suddenly said, "Stop delivering the nutrient solution." When Philia heard this, she hesitated. "Boss, this may cause the experimental subject to not have enough nutrition and die." Li Feng gave the other person a cold look. "I don't want to say it a second time. This is also one of the reasons why Luna can become an assistant while the other party can only stay in the laboratory." Philia couldn't bear the gaze and lowered her head obediently. "Yes, stop the nutrient solution." As the supply of nutrient solution stopped, the subject's struggle immediately began to weaken, but the amount of black substance coming out of his body increased instead. "Haha. Bring 10 little white mice here." "Yes." After a while, 10 mice were pushed into the laboratory. Li Feng threw the little white mouse on the experimental subject without hesitation. The next second, the black substance on the experimental subject's body covered the little white mouse as if it were alive. Zhizzy. After struggling for a few times, the little white mouse became motionless. After devouring the white mouse, the experimental subject began to grow little white hair all over its body, and its palms and feet also became a bit like the white mouse. Soon, as 10 mice were devoured, the changes became more obvious, and even the experimental subjects grew tails. Oh my god, after devouring a creature, it actually moves closer to the devoured creature. Then if he devours a cheetah, won't he become a cheetah? What's a cheetah? If those things are devoured, won't it be a step up? You mean the lickers? SHH. After observing for a while, Li Feng suddenly said, bring all the level 1 X genes here. He wanted to see whether the black light virus could devour the X gene. Level 1 X genes are ordinary superpowers, such as increased strength, increased speed, etc. After a while, the test tube containing the X gene was brought in, and Li Feng threw it on the experimental subject without hesitation. As many X genes were absorbed, the experimental subject suddenly mutated all over. I saw that all the black substance was absorbed back, and then the muscles all over the body began to swell. Roar. With a roar, the special iron handcuffs were immediately broken free. Seeing this, the scientific researchers around ran out of the laboratory without hesitation. The security personnel around stepped forward, opened the safety buckle, and aimed at the experimental subject. Since its establishment, Umbrella has conducted countless biological research. It is normal for experimental subjects to lose control, so everyone is very skilled at it. Roar. The subject roared angrily and rushed towards the nearest security guard. When the security guard saw this, he pulled the trigger without hesitation. Zitsize. The bullet hit the subject at 10 times the speed of sound, but it shot out from the other end in an instant and hit the wall. The injuries on the experimental subject recovered instantly and he continued to rush forward. After absorbing many X genes, this experimental subject possesses strength that surpasses the third form of the G virus. These security personnel are decidedly no match for the experimental subjects. Instead, they will be absorbed and become nutrients for the experimental subjects. Thinking of this, Li Feng stepped forward and asked his men to stop shooting. As his eyes glowed blue, a powerful mental force surged out, covering the experimental subject, trying to lift him into the air. No matter how strong your body is, if you don't have a leverage point, you are just meat on a chopping board. But the next second, the black substance on the experimental subject's body emerged again and absorbed all the mental power covering the body. It can actually absorb spiritual energy. Interesting. It seems that the actual effect of the black light virus is beyond the expectations of Red Queen and myself. Seeing the subject rushing towards him, he raised his left hand and then opened his palm. Destroy. A dark purple light emerged from the palm of his hand and instantly submerged the experimental subject. Rumble. The extremely powerful energy instantly submerged the experimental subjects and even destroyed the 3-meter thick reinforced concrete wall of the laboratory, disappearing into the soil and rock for an unknown distance. This is an underground laboratory, surrounded by dirt and rocks. Chapter 52, Shareholders Meeting convened again. After dealing with the experimental subject, due to the damage to the laboratory, the next experiment on the blacklight virus had to be carried out in a different laboratory. Although the current blacklight virus has exceeded expectations, it is not a good virus if the experimental subject cannot be controlled. After all, studying viruses is to serve yourself, not to create instability for yourself. Li Feng was no longer interested in watching the experiment, so he returned to the UFCE. Just as he was checking the documents sent by Red Queen, there was a knock on the door. Dong dong. Come in. As the UFCE door opened, Erica, wearing a sexy red tight ninja suit and red high heels, walked in and knelt on one knee. My lord, Tanagawa Masanobu has escaped. Ran. Li Feng raised his head and looked at the other person. In fact, when Mariko submitted the head, he discovered that it was a substitute head of Masanobu. Tanagawa. However, because he needed Mariko as a chess piece, he did not explain it clearly to the other party. And secretly, he sent Erica to hunt down the other party. I'm sorry, my lord. Masanobu Tanagawa and several of his men obtained some kind of enhancement, their arms could turn into tentacles, and their strength increased a lot. I almost didn't come back. After a moment of silence, Li Feng said, it's time for you, the captain of the USS, to return to the team. He rescued Erica from Kingpin 4 years ago. At that time, the opponent was being controlled by Kingpin using special means, becoming a sharp blade in Kingpin's hands, ding for the latter in the New York underground world. After being rescued by him, Erica joined Umbrella in order to repay him. Later, the other party did a lot for him, made many contributions, and became the captain of the USS. However, the USS is full of talented people, especially after the emergence of the T3 virus, many of them are as powerful as Erica. So Erica chose to go it alone and let the USS fly freely. If the USS cooperated with this mission, it would definitely not fail. Boss, those guys on the USS aren't very obedient, so let's just forget it. Let those three guys compete with each other. I won't force you, but Tanagawa Masanobu must die. I'll give you a month. Got it? I'll let Team Zeta assist me. As a support team, the captain of the Zeta team is more obedient than the other three teams. Ro. In fact, Li Feng could force the other three teams to listen to Erica, but there was no need to do so. After all, if Erica has to deal with such a small matter herself, it means that she is not suitable to be the captain of the USS. After Erica left, Li Feng turned and looked at the computer screen. Breaking news, the Ten Rings gang has captured the Gumara region, and the Middle East has fallen into an unprecedented era of terrorism. Owner. At this time, the projection of the cute little girl Red Queen appeared in front. The military has sent a new order for 10 C viruses. Arrange for someone to deliver the goods as soon as possible. It is estimated that the zombie virus from the Sakura country attracted most of the attention of the international community, which allowed those people to let go and capture Gumara so quickly. It seems that the situation in the Middle East will undergo many changes in the future. Yes, Master. Also, Pepper just sent a notice in Tony's name. They are planning to hold a shareholders meeting in 3 days. What did Obadiah say? Mr. Obadiah hasn't sent any message yet. Then it will probably be here soon. Jingle bell. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, the phone on the desk rang. It was Obadiah calling. The morning after 3 days. In the large conference room of Stark Tower. Tony and Pepper, along with Carlson, pushed open the door of the conference room and saw that all the shareholders and senior executives were already there. At the same time, they also saw Obadiah, and next to him was someone they didn't know. After a while, Tony and the other two frowned, because their location could not be found at the scene. At this time, all the seats in the conference room were occupied, and it seemed that there were no seats reserved for them. Obadiah, who was sitting in the main seat, looked at the awkward scene of Tony and others and smiled slightly. Oh, Mr. Stark, I'm so sorry, I didn't expect you to come and I forgot to arrange a seat for you. Although he said sorry, he had no intention of asking for more seats. At this awkward moment, a company veteran stood up. Mr. Stark, please sit here with me. I just want to stand and move around for a while. As these words fell, other company veterans and some company executives also stood up. Obviously, these people have begun to support Tony. Seeing this scene, Pepper immediately smiled victoriously. After her efforts and persuasion over this period of time, she has won over quite a few people. Of course, the promised bonuses and costs are naturally not small, but as long as he can return to Stark Enterprises, it will all be worth it. Finally, after some adjustments, everyone asked someone to bring 3 more chairs, and then the others moved to the side and squeezed in. It's not that anyone is really left standing. What puzzled Pepper was that apart from the initial ridicule, Obadiah did not take any action afterwards. But she won't show mercy. As soon as the shareholders' meeting began, she stood up immediately. The RST resolution of the shareholders' meeting is to allow Tony to return to the board of directors. After saying that, she and Tony immediately raised their hands. Following closely behind him were Carlson, a large number of company veterans and some senior executives. Seeing this, Pepper immediately looked at Obadiah provocatively. That expression seemed to say, "You are doomed to lose." Obadiah remained calm about this. "I think, before the shareholders' meeting votes, I would like to introduce this friend of mine, and then count the respective shareholdings. After all, after a round of Nansing, Stark Enterprises equity now reaches 1.5 billion shares." Hearing this, Pepper suddenly had a bad feeling in her heart. But when he thought about the fact that Obadiah didn't have that much money to buy shares, and that his side had at least 50% of the shares according to the original ratio, even if it shrunk by 1/3, it would still be around 35%. Obadiah's side also shrunk by 1/3, so they still had a big advantage. It is good. Obadiah smiled slightly when he heard Pepper agree. The person next to me is Ivan Vanko, and he is here to attend this shareholders meeting on behalf of the Umbrella Group. At the same time, he is also the son of a Stark Enterprises veteran. By the way, his father's name is Anton Vank. Hearing Anton's name, many shareholders started to make a noise. It's actually his son. Anton's son still has the nerve to come back. So it was him. I didn't expect Umbrella to ND him. Humph, the son of a thief dares to attend the shareholders meeting. When Ivan heard the word the son of a thief, his face, which had originally been full of amusement, suddenly turned gloomy. My father is not a thief. Howard is the thief. Chapter 53. The situation is reversed. Tony, who was originally prepared to sit and watch Pepper tear Obadiah apart, suddenly heard someone say that his father was a thief. He immediately stood up and looked at Ivan intently. What did you say? Say it again if you dare. Although he hated that his father was busy with work every day when he was a child and rarely spent time with him, causing him to lack fatherly love, it does not mean that others can slander his father. In his heart, Howard may not be a good father, but he is decidedly a hero, a good scientist, and a good capitalist. He created Stark Industries and invented many technologies, bringing countless benefits to mankind. Such a great man should be loved by everyone, instead of being slandered as a thief. It can be said that his father is his Achilles heel. Ivan saw Tony was furious, and he was not willing to be outdone. Your father is a thief. A robber. They stole my father's research results, slandered my father for stealing technology, drove my father out of Stark Enterprises, and left him dying in bed. You are talking nonsense. Your father is a thief. You are the son of a thief. You fucks are the thief. Seeing the two men climbing out of the table and about to GHT, everyone rushed forward to hold them back. Calm down. Mr. Stark, don't be impulsive. Mr. Vank, this is the shareholders meeting. Everyone, get back to your seats. After some tug of war, the two Nally calmed down and returned to their seats. But the two of them still glared at each other, as if they were about to GHT at the slightest disagreement. Obadiah then said, well, you are not children anymore. Now let's start counting the shares in each of our hands. After some estimation, the situation was roughly the same as Pepper thought. The shares they hold, together with those of the veterans and senior executives, account for 33% of the shares. Obadiah and Umbrella, together with some of their top executives, own 24% of the shares. With a 9-point equity gap, the initiative is now entirely on their side. This brought a smile to Pepper's face again. But after a while, Obadiah stood up with a condensed smile on his face. Everyone, let me introduce a new shareholder to you, Mr. Sherlock, the general manager of Sherlock Fund. Clap clap clap. After he finished speaking, Obadiah led the applause, and the people on his side immediately followed suit. The people on Pepper's side frowned. Sherlock Fund? I heard it's a fund company that's going to go bankrupt. Yes, last month, due to a failed investment, the bank said it was going to take it back. But I heard that Sherlock Fund received a large investment and bought a lot of Stark Enterprises shares. Well, we made a lot of money when the stock of our Stark Enterprises soared. Obadiah nodded. It seems that everyone knows Sherlock Fund Company, so I don't need to introduce it anymore. According to the current shareholding ratio, Mr. Sherlock owns 10% of the shares. When they heard about the 10% stake, everyone present gasped. You should know that the current share price of Stark Enterprises is around 180, and this is the price after issuing 500 million shares. This means that Stark Enterprises' market value has reached approximately 2,700 billion, making it one of the largest companies in the United States. And this Sherlock actually owns 270% of the shares, which means he is worth about billion. He is also the second largest shareholder of Stark Enterprises. Currently, Stark is still the largest shareholder, owning 26% of the shares. How could he have so much money? Yes, how could a fund company that was about to go bankrupt last month get so much money? It must be fake. He has so much equity and we don't know anything about it? Sherlock smiled at the doubts from the crowd, then opened his briefcase and took out various equity documents. Our Sherlock Fund Company has actually been listed for a long time, but perhaps because so many things have happened recently, you may not have noticed it. Indeed, the recent news about the mass graves in the Middle East, the mutants attempting to sabotage the United Nations summit, the zombie virus in Sakura country, the occupation of the Gumara area by the Ten Rings gang, and so on, have been constantly refreshing the major news media. Therefore, news like Sherlock's listing could only occupy a small corner of the news section and was simply ignored. Pepper looked at the equity registration information and various listing announcements in his hands. His face suddenly became gloomy, and his hands began to tremble slightly. Tony, who was standing next to her, noticed her situation immediately and held her hand. "Pepper, are you okay?" Pepper looked at Tony, who was full of concern, and gave a smile that was uglier than crying. "It's okay, let's look at the vote." At this moment, she knew in her heart that she was likely to lose the vote. But she still had a last glimmer of hope, hoping that Sherlock would abstain from voting. Now that the respective votes have been counted, the RST round of voting begins. Mr. Stark returns to the board. The voting result was beyond doubt. Obadiah's side won with a narrow advantage of 34 to 33, just one vote. Tony missed the shareholders' meeting. After getting this result, Tony slumped in his chair with a dazed look on his face, not knowing what to think. But Pepper lowered her head, not daring to look at Tony. She knew she had screwed up and betrayed Tony's trust. She originally thought that the situation was certain to win, but now it seemed so ridiculous. Yvonne was also laughing heartily at this time. "This is the retribution for being a robber. What you rob will be lost sooner or later." At this time, Tony no longer had the heart to pay attention to the other party, but stared at Sherlock. "Who the hell are you? Why are you helping Obadiah?" Sherlock lowered his head, not daring to look at Tony, and didn't even say a word. In fact, only he himself knows his own suffering. What 10% of Stark shares, what Sherlock Fund Company, are just a glove. Umbrella Corporation is completely in control behind the scenes. This is the charm of the United States as a capitalist country. As long as it is managed well, 50 million can leverage more than 20 billion. However, this is also because Umbrella has funded many congressmen and cooperated with the military, so it has the condens to do so. If it were an ordinary person, he would have been eaten up by the China Securities Regulatory Commission and the capitalists long ago. As the voting results came out, the faces of the people on Pepper's side turned pale. Those company veterans are at most they will be dismissed from their positions. Anyway, they can still live comfortably with the stocks in their hands. But it's different for those at the top. The equity they hold comes from their positions. For example, the general manager can own 0.5% of the company's dividends and equity. But if they lose their positions, then the equity and dividends will naturally have nothing to do with them. So next, it was time for Obadiah to take revenge. Chapter 54 Palladium Poisoning. As the shareholders' meeting ended, Tony and Pepper returned to the villa in a daze. Carlson followed them in silence the entire time. It wasn't until Tony and Pepper sat on the sofa in silence for a long time that Carlson couldn't help but say, "Mr. Stark, Ms. Pepper, I think this Sherlock is very suspicious. Do you want me to investigate?" Based on his intuition as an agent over the years, he felt that Sherlock's identity was suspicious, and even those shares were strange. Hearing this, hope rekindled in Pepper's eyes. "Yes, this Sherlock seems to have appeared out of nowhere. It's totally unreasonable. There must be something shameful." Tony didn't say anything, still keeping his head down and silent. It was not until I called him several times that he came to his senses. "Tony, are you okay? Don't worry, although we failed this time, I will definitely win back next time." Facing Pepper's concerned look, Tony shook his head absent-mindedly. I'm not thinking about it. What's that? That bank. The other party was as paranoid as himself, and it seemed that in his eyes, he believed that his father was a thief and robber. Although he was very determined that his father had done nothing wrong, he still felt uneasy. Why do you want to think about Vank? He's just the son of a thief. Even our government has sentenced him to death for stealing secrets and expelled him from the country. What's there to think about? Tony calmed down a little when he heard the country's judgment. Yes, it is impossible for the US government to cheat. At this moment, he suddenly felt pain and discomfort all over his body. This pain and discomfort began to appear slowly after the battle with Shinjin Yashida Silver Samurai, but he didn't take it too seriously at RST. But now it is becoming more and more obvious. But now that I'm back home, I'll have a thorough checkup to avoid any sequelae. I'll go downstairs and take care of myself RST. You guys stay here and chat. After saying that, he went straight downstairs. An hour later, Tony looked at the report in his hand, his face turned pale, and the hand holding the report trembled slightly. The palladium content is 30 times higher than that of an average person. If treated and kept away from palladium items, levels can return to normal. But the arc reactor in his body uses the element palladium. However, the remaining fragments of the explosion in his body must be absorbed by the magnetic field of the arc reactor to prevent them from owing into his heart. In other words, he could not stay away from the element palladium at all. You're doomed. Thinking of this, his face suddenly turned pale. Just then, footsteps were heard at the stairs. The person coming down was Pepper. Seeing the other party appear, Tony immediately pretended nothing had happened and put away the report. What's matter? Pepper originally wanted to tell the other party the result of her discussion with Carlson, but after coming down, she found that Tony's face was a little abnormally pale, so she felt nervous and uneasy. Tony, are you okay? You look so pale. As she spoke, she touched Tony's cheek. Tony threw the report behind him into the corner and grabbed Pepper's little hand. I'm Annie, there was just an accident during the experiment. By the way, how did your talk with Carlson go? Seeing that Tony did seem to be Annie, Pepper lowered her hand and shook her head. There is no better solution. We decided to investigate Sherlock's source of funds, and then Andy away. To persuade Umbrella to give up supporting Obadiah. It's a little difficult to get Umbrella to give up Obadiah. You have to be mentally prepared. While changing the subject, Tony walked upstairs with his arm around Pepper. He didn't want Pepper to end out that he was abnormal. The other party had already worked hard. Enough for Stark Enterprises, so why should he let her worry about him again? I know it's difficult, but I have to meet Mr. Lee again and see if I can persuade him. Don't think too much about it, let's go to bed early. Well, isn't it too early? Get some rest early. Is it really just a break? Probably. When Tony was so worried about the excessive palladium level that he even refused to go to Sakura Country. At Sakura Junior High School, it was morning and the sun was slowly rising. Charles looked at Mariko Yashida getting off a car in the distance, but she was surrounded by a group of security guards, and he also felt distressed. There seemed to be something on Mariko Yashida's body that resisted his mental penetration, making it impossible for him to enter her memory from a distance. Maybe it's possible at close range, but every time he tried to get close to the other party, he was stopped by the security guards. At this time, Mariko Yashida, who was far away, entered the company under the cover of security guards. Seeing this, Chin, who was pushing the wheelchair, said, Professor, how about we make an appointment to meet and see if we can get in touch with the other party? Well, you can try it, but you don't have to push me. But Professor, you are alone. It's okay. No one will care about an old man like me. This. After hesitating for a while, Chin nodded. Then Professor, be careful. After saying that, she stretched out her long legs and headed towards Yashida Company. Shortly after Chin left, a man walked past Charles from behind. It's all Umbrella's fault. After saying this, the man secretly threw down a USB drive and continued walking forward without stopping. Upon seeing this, Charles immediately used his mental power to enter the other person's brain, wanting to see whether this was a human or a ghost, and what he meant by the words just now. But when his mental power entered the other person's mind, he felt boundless chaos and a tendency towards destruction. This moment startled him and he left the other person's mind. This is not a mental state that a normal human being can have. At this moment, the man seemed to notice something and looked back at Charles. It was this delay that caused a bullet to instantly pierce the opponent's head at 10 times the speed of sound. Puff. Boom. The gunnery was long overdue. What? Killed. Life is dead. Passers-by saw someone's head split like a watermelon, with red and white splashing all over the ground, and they immediately ran away in panic. Charles, who stayed where he was, also had his pupils contracted. The man who was shot in the head had strange changes in his hands. They began to stretch and then turned into tentacle-like things. What kind of monster is this? Also, is that mental power of chaos and destruction the instinct of this monster? But soon, he immediately remembered the USB ash drive in his arms and what the other party said. Did Umbrella kill him? On the rooftop of a high-rise building more than 700 meters away, Erica, who was wearing a red ninja costume and had a curvy gur, put away the electromagnetic sniper RIE in her hand. Tanagawa Masanobu, let's see how long you can hide. When I kill all your men, will you still be able to hold back and not come out? Chapter 55, The Director's Intuition. After a while, Chin came out of Yashida Company and immediately noticed something unusual on the street. Professor? Professor? Here. Charles, who had already pushed his wheelchair to the side, immediately waved to Chin. Chin immediately ran over anxiously. Professor, what happened? Now is not the time to explain. Let's go quickly and return to the aircraft carrier. The killer might appear at any time, so he didn't dare stay here for even a second. Okay, I'll ask the SHIELD people to come and pick us up right away. Well, let's go hide aside RST. Charles held the USB ash drive in his palm and felt that it was not a USB ash drive but a hot potato. At this time, he had many questions in his mind. Who is that tentacle monster and why is the spiritual world LLED with chaos and destruction? Who killed him? Was it Umbrella? What role did Umbrella play in this, and what information was in the USB ash drive in his hand? On an aircraft carrier over Tokyo, Nick stood in the command room with a gloomy face, watching the busy people walking around. The situation on Kyushu Island can be said to be under full control, and all small towns have been recovered. But what to do with millions of zombies? This has become the United Nations' biggest headache, and also his biggest headache. In addition to the zombie problem, the origin of the zombie virus has not been found yet. The Security Council was very dissatisfied with SHIELD. More importantly, in SHIELD, he felt that there seemed to be a force that was beyond his control. But he could never ND the source of this power. Da-da-da. At this moment, the sound of high heels walking was heard. Turning around, I saw a beautiful lady with long golden hair. Sharon, have you found the leader of the hand? Sharon, whose full name is Sharon Carter, is Peggy Carter's niece and is currently an ordinary agent of SHIELD. A month ago, she was the one who followed Nick and Natasha to Tony's villa. Chief Nick, we discovered that one of the founders of the hand, Murakami, is not currently in Sakura country. Oh? Where is he? America. Nick narrowed his eyes at this. What is he doing in the United States? There's no tonight news. It seems like they're looking for some dragon bones, they want to summon some black space, and they have a grudge with some street superheroes. When talking about street superheroes, Sharon's tone was very calm, as if she was just an ordinary person. In fact, as a global organization, SHIELD has come into contact with various forces and extraordinary people. Among them, those who are only slightly stronger than ordinary people are classified as street superheroes. This means that these people can only punish evil on the streets. Then let Barton and Natasha go to the United States and contact this Murakami. Yes. After receiving the order, Peggy immediately strode away in her high heels. But soon, a beautiful woman with short black hair came over. Director Nick, Professor Charles, and Miss Jean are back. It seems to have brought some very important news. Nick turned his head and looked at the beautiful deputy in front of him with his remaining eye. Ms. Hill, tell them to go to the conference room. I'll be there in a minute. Hill, whose full name is Maria Hill, is currently the deputy director of SHIELD. Although she has no superpowers, she can handle everything in an orderly manner and her methods are quite sophisticated. Could it be her? The hidden mastermind in SHIELD? After thinking about it, he rejected it again because he knew Hill too well. The other party is definitely not someone who would betray him. Maria saw that Nick had no other instructions, so she nodded and left. Nick turned around and looked at the people busy around him, and suddenly felt that he might have been worrying too much. There aren't so many shady people involved. Maybe I'm having an anxiety attack. A moment later, Nick came into the meeting room wearing a black leather windbreaker. What's the important thing? Charles was used to Nick's straightforward personality, so he didn't waste any words and recounted what had happened to him. After listening to this, Nick looked at the USB drive on the table with a serious expression. A strengthened man whose hands turned into tentacles. Shot in the head by Umbrella's men. I can't be 100% sure that it was Umbrella who killed him, but my intuition tells me that it was Umbrella. First, take a look at what's inside the USB drive. After a while, a laptop with no internet connection and no data on it was delivered. After inserting the USB drive, several people began to look at the information inside. There isn't much information, just a general explanation of something called the T-virus, and a record. 3 years ago, in a village called Baru in the Middle East, a group of man-eating monsters appeared. Its characteristics are exactly the same as the zombies on Kyushu Island. But soon the Baru village was massacred and no news was reported. After Nick finished reading the information, he fell silent. Only Chin was still confused. How could there be such a virus in the world? It can actually strengthen and recombine biological genetic factors. Captain America's super soldier serum didn't have such a perverted function. There was a hint of excitement in Charles's eyes. Didn't you see any side effects? The virus will cause partial necrosis of the cerebral cortex, severely reduce intelligence, and turn people into beasts that follow their instincts. Chin followed up by saying, isn't it the instinct of wild animals to eat and reproduce? This is exactly the same behavior as the zombies on Kyushu Island. After listening to the two people's analysis, Nick's brows did not relax, but became even more solemn. As an international group, Umbrella involves enormous forces and interests. If you want to take action against Umbrella, you will probably encounter great obstacles. Charles's heart sank when he saw Nick's look. It seems that things are not as simple as I thought. Jean was still relatively young and didn't know the intricacies of the situation. She said innocently. Director Nick, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and order a search of Umbrella to end an antidote to the zombie virus. After a while, Nick looked up, glanced at Chin, and then put away the USB drive and laptop. This matter is classified as the highest level of confidentiality and no one is allowed to disclose it. In the conference room, Chin looked at Nick who left in a hurry, and was immediately puzzled. Professor, what does Chief Nick mean? Charles said solemnly, the reach of Umbrella's power may be far beyond our imagination, and it is not as simple as it seems. Don't tell anyone about what happened today. But Scott and Aurora. Alas, their affairs can only be discussed slowly later. After saying this, Charles felt deeply tired. It's not physical fatigue, but mental fatigue. The scene where the tentacle man was shot in the head was far more dangerous and bloody than anything he had ever encountered before. At this moment, he suddenly missed Eric a little. Chapter 56 Confusing. After leaving the meeting room, Nick walked quickly to his office. Looking at the USB ash drive in his hand, he fell into deep thought. After more than 10 minutes. Send Sharon over here. Minutes later. The door is opened. Sharon walked in quickly in her high heels. Director. I have a very important and dangerous mission for you. Infiltrate Umbrella and obtain research reports on the T-virus. Sharon nodded without hesitation. Yes. Looking at his men in front of him, Nick continued with some concern, from what I know, Umbrella is not as simple as it seems. You should be careful. Chief, if there's nothing else, we'll be leaving. Go ahead, be safe. Hearing Nick's uncharacteristic repeated warnings, Sharon, who had not yet set out, felt an invisible pressure. It seems that this mission is extraordinary. After Sharon left, Nick thought about it and called Maria over. Hill, take this USB drive and report to the Security Council. Let's just say there is evidence to suspect that Umbrella created the zombie crisis on Kyushu Island. Looking at the USB drive in front of her, Maria asked in confusion, where did this USB drive come from? Don't worry about this, just do it. Yes, Director. After Maria left, Nick called Sam again. Soon, a young black man walked into the OVSE. Sam, whose full name is Sam Wilson, nicknamed Falcon, has the ability to communicate with birds. And also has a pair of high-tech metal wings. Director, are you looking for me? Well, I have a task for you to do. 3 years ago, a village called Baru in the Middle East was destroyed. Some people said that a zombie virus appeared there. After thinking for a while, Nick reminded him again, you'd better take a team to investigate there, and then come back to report to me. Yes, Director. After accepting the task, Sam left the OVSE. Nick, who was in the OVSE, began to wonder if there was anything he had missed. At present, it will take some time to make a breakthrough at Yashida Corporation, and the zombies on Kyushu Island are also under control. The hand shouldn't be a big problem. They are just a killer organization and have nothing to do with the zombie virus. They probably got into it by mistake. The only trouble now is ending the antidote. As long as we can confirm that Umbrella is the creator of the zombie virus and obtain the antidote, the problem here will be solved. Just as he was thinking about the problem, one of his men suddenly walked in. Director, just now, Mariko Yashida announced that she will run for the next Prime Minister position. At the same time, we will invest $100 million to establish a zombie virus antidote research and development company with the Umbrella Group. What? Nick stood up, his expression serious. There is not much time left for them. If the other party really comes up with an antidote to the zombie virus, then even if he obtains any evidence afterwards, the other party can refute it by saying that they have developed an antidote. At the Yashida Corporation press conference, Mariko Yashida walked down the podium with a smug look on her face, waving goodbye to the reporters around her along the way. A few minutes later, back in the OVSE, she saw a beautiful woman in a red ninja costume, and waved her hands to dismiss her men. Miss Erica, you are here. Does the master have any instructions? To the secret room. Yes. After a while, the two came to the secret room. Erica took out the suitcase and opened it. Inside were 2 test tubes, one blue and one green. This is the T3 virus, and the T virus antidote. Looking at the test tube in front of her, Mariko Yashida's eyes suddenly lit up and her breathing became heavier. As long as you have these 2 things, you will gain powerful strength, immortality, and power. But the next second, Erica closed the suitcase with a click. The master discovered that the head you submitted last time was a fake, and Masanobu Tanagawa is still alive. What? How is that possible? I chopped off his head myself. If it's fake, it's fake. Would the master lie to you? Hearing this, Mariko Yashida immediately knelt on the ground. Don't dare. Your RST priority now is to send people to ND Tanagawa Masanobu with all their strength. Yes. After taking a last reluctant look at the suitcase, Mariko Yashida's reason now prevailed. The woman in front of me is not simple. It's night time soon. Above Tokyo, on a SHIELD aircraft carrier. Nick sat at the back of the OVSE with a gloomy face, and in front of him was Maria, who was reporting to him. Chief Nick, the Security Council rejected our request. The representatives of the Northern Bear Country, in particular, asked us to provide solid evidence, rather than these ambiguous things. Otherwise, we have to consider the professionalism of SHIELD and change people. Ah! Nick nodded and folded his hands under his chin. The only remaining right eye emitted a chilling chill. It was exactly what he thought. Umbrella's global layout has grown so large that even the Security Council does not want to take action against it. After all, the tentacles of interests are everywhere, and maybe they have a vested interest in Umbrella. But as an agency that protects humanity from the threat of supernatural powers, how could SHIELD just sit there and do nothing? Ms. Hill, if we go back to the United States now and recall all our personnel, we can launch a raid on Umbrella. What do you think the chances are? Maria put down the USB drive in her hand and shook her head. Director, I advise you not to have such thoughts. Because I'm not sure how many people in SHIELD will obey your orders completely. Although the Security Council has given SHIELD the greatest authority, it will naturally arrange various personnel to ensure that SHIELD does not get out of control. I see. Seeing that Nick had nothing else to do, Maria left the OVSE. Nick looked at the USB drive on the table, opened it, and plugged it into the laptop. Seeing that the information inside had not been tampered with at all, he felt relieved. It seems that she is indeed NE. His biggest characteristic that allows him to become the director of SHIELD is that he is extremely suspicious and doubts everyone. This is also the secret of his survival. Am I really overthinking it? Dong dong. Following a knock on the door, a subordinate soon walked in. Director, the autopsy report of the tentacle man's body this morning is out. The other party has 100% human genes, and the same is true for the arm. There is no abnormal gene found at all. After sending his men away, Nick felt that things were becoming more and more confusing. The tentacle man's arms are not something a human should have, but they are still human genes. The meaning contained in this is obviously beyond common sense. Umbrella, what secrets are you hiding? Chapter 58, Traitor Arrested, First Order. Rumble. The weather in September is like a child, changing its face at any time. There was a bright moon in the sky at RST, but soon it was covered with dark clouds and lightning. The sound of clatter. Rain began to sound. In a previously uninhabited small house in the suburbs of Tokyo, Masanobu Tanagawa stood behind the curtains, looking at the thunderstormy night outside, his thoughts being the same as the weather. Boss, Ozaki Yutaka hasn't come back yet. The younger brother behind him also reported uneasily at this time. In response, Masanobu Tanagawa just nodded lightly without saying anything. Because it was known that Ozaki Yutaka was probably in great danger. After a while, he turned around and looked at the four remaining brothers behind him, and saw the fear and anxiety in their eyes. Masanobu Tanagawa knew that he had to say something, otherwise people would lose their morale. Us. Just as he opened his mouth, there was a sudden loud bang. The window was broken, and the head of the little brother next to him cracked like a watermelon. Red and white instantly spread all over the ground. Even he was splashed with a lot of it. Faced with this sudden change, he reacted quickly and immediately threw himself behind the sofa to avoid the enemy's sight and attack. In the next moment, gunshots were heard and bullets were red. The remaining few brothers were shot in the head immediately. He also discovered that no matter how he dodged or where he hid, the bullets would always hit him. It's heat sensing. In modern warfare, it is not enough to just hide behind a bunker. Infrared thermal sensing makes you invisible, and powerful caliber can destroy bunkers. Thinking of this, Masanobu Tanagawa immediately gathered all the heat from his body and lay on the ground motionless. Sure enough, the gunshots disappeared after a while. Soon after, footsteps were heard outside. The enemy is coming in. Thinking of this, his hands immediately turned into tentacles, ready to kill the enemy at any time. With a bang, the door was kicked open and several things were thrown in. Oh no, the enemy has no moral principles. Masanobu Tanagawa reacted immediately, stood up, and ran to the window. Boom. Several explosions sounded. He also took advantage of the shockwave of the explosion and jumped out of the window. Raindrops kept falling on him, soaking him in an instant and chilling his heart. Looking up, he saw a group of people around him wearing steel armor, some holding electromagnetic guns, pointing them at him. He had never seen these iron armors before. They were about 2 meters tall, sturdy, and completely black, giving people a very heavy feeling. As the saying goes, those who understand current affairs are heroes. The next second, he raised his tentacle-like hands without hesitation and restored them to arm shape. I surrender. Seeing this, Erika, who was wearing a red ninja costume, took a step forward with a playful look on her face. Don't run away. Tanagawa Masanobu shook his head. I don't dare to run away. Then wait for the master's decision. Erica waved. Take away. Looking at the latest armor on the Zeta team members, she suddenly felt an urge to want a set as well. This is the latest armor developed by Umbrella. It is called the Dawn armor, which means dawn and hope. Because the Dawn armor has solved the energy problem, it can GHT and Y for a long time. It is also equipped with various heavy repower and has high defense. The only drawback is that it is too expensive. When I have enough points, I will definitely change into a set of Dawn armor and paint it pink. Big sister, what should I do? At this time, Masanobu Tanigawa saw his disappeared younger brother, Yutaka Ozaki, looking at Erika. With a attering look on his face. You, come back with me and wait for the adult's decision, but I will report the situation. Thank you. Thank you. It turned out that he was the one who betrayed himself. Thinking of this, Masanobu Tanigawa suddenly felt hopeless. In the Umbrella Building, New York, USA. It was noon. Li Feng sat in the boss chair, looking at the new messages. It was from Luna. There are local dark forces in the city of Khabarovsk that are causing trouble at the construction site and preventing construction from starting. They also said that their ancestral graves were on that piece of land and that no foundation could be dug without their permission. Luna tried to end the local of Chales, but even they were unwilling to deal with the dark forces. This can be considered as a characteristic of the Far East region of the Northern Bear Country. After all, the Far East is far away and Moscow's decrees cannot reach there, so there is serious collusion between local of Chales and local forces. Sometimes when you go to the authorities to get things done, it's not as effective as going to the local authorities. But Umbrella is not easy to bully. Luna took her people and threw many people into the sea. Li Feng felt it was such a waste. So I replied to the message and asked the other party to make the best use of the materials, as the prices of experimental subjects had increased recently. The other party will definitely understand what you mean. Then he looked at other messages. Recently, someone said online that Umbrella's special healing medicine has carcinogenic effects. It is obvious at RST glance that this matter is another case of the Osborne Group pulling strings behind the scenes. After all, the other party released the Osborne brand of special healing medicine some time ago, hoping to seize his market. But in the end it was revealed that the effect was not as good as Umbrella, so they started to resort to despicable means. Now that the issues in Sakura country have been almost resolved, we can free up our hands to deal with the Osborne Group. Jingle bell. At this moment, a phone call interrupted his thoughts. Hey. Really? Thank you then. By the way, I recently developed a special medicine that can GHT cancer. You can give it to your lover to try. Okay, I'll have someone send it to you later. I hope your lover gets better. After hanging up the phone, Li Feng gave a meaningful look. This Tanigawa Masanobu really caused me some trouble. But SHIELD would never have thought that I have people in the Security Council. Just as he was about to continue looking through the information, the phone rang again. Jingle bell. It was Erika calling. Hey. My lord, Tanigawa Masanobu has been captured, and he has a younger brother as well. Yes, bring them to New York. Yes, my lord. After hanging up the phone, Li Feng turned his attention back to the things in front of him. The current market value of the Osborne Group is around 170 billion. It is a large multinational group with many industries, and it is not so easy to solve the problem. I wonder how old that little spider is. Can I use it? Red Queen, pull up Peter Benjamin Parker's Pro LE. Yes, master. Soon, detailed information about Peter appeared in front of him, from birth to growth and so on. You're just an elementary school student. It looks like you have no chance. Just when he was still thinking, Red Queen suddenly appeared. Master, I just received news that S.H.I.E.L.D. has sent people to the Middle East to look for Blue Village. Li Feng's eyes turned slightly cold. Since someone is so eager to die, let them do it. Chapter 59 The Invincible Hulk, First Order. The time comes in the afternoon. In a desert military base in the United States. General Ross was processing documents in his office at this time. Dong dong. At this time, there was a knock on the door. Please come in. As the door opened, one of his soldiers walked in. "General, someone was found to have excessive gamma radiation in his body after drinking a bottle of soda water. According to our investigation, there is blood mixed in the soda water, and the source of the gamma radiation is the blood." General Ross immediately put down the documents in his hand. "Is that Dr. Banner?" "Yes, after we compared the DNA of the blood, it was 100% consistent with Dr. Banner." "Where is soda water made?" "A factory in Rocinha, Brazil." "What are you waiting for? Go catch him now." "Yes, General." "Wait, have Umbrella's products arrived?" "Only 10 were delivered." "I'll contact Umbrella and have them send them all to me. Also, I need an ACE Special Forces team." The next morning. The slums of Rocinha. This is the largest slum in Brazil, home to 250,000 people. This place is only separated from the wealthy area by a street. On that side of the street are expensive, high-rise buildings, while on this side of the street are low and dilapidated houses. The streets are full of garbage and excrement. At this time, Banner was carrying a school bag, wearing a white short-sleeved shirt and black pants, walking quickly on the dirty and messy street. After a while, he came to a martial arts gym and met the owner, a middle-aged white Brazilian man. "You came?" Banner nodded. "Get ready." A few minutes later, Banner, wearing a white sleeveless vest, came to the center of the martial arts hall. Because it was too early and not the upscale opening time of the martial arts school, there were only him and the owner here. The two then had a wrestling match, and after warming up, they sat down to share their experiences. "You need to adjust your breathing and keep yourself calm. The emotion is here." As the owner spoke, he patted his chest, where his heart was. At this time, Banner listened very seriously. He is learning how to control his emotions and avoid the appearance of Hulk. "And breathe like this." The owner patted his lower abdomen, which then bulged and contracted continuously, using his lower abdomen to exhale. "Hoo hoo." Banner followed suit and began to try exhaling from his lower abdomen. The way to control your anger is to control your body, control your pulse. Exhale, exhale. Snapped. As soon as he finished speaking, the gym owner slapped Banner in the face. Banner exhaled from his lower abdomen, controlling his anger. Snapped. Another slap. At this moment, Banner found that the pulse alarm watch on his wrist began to ring. He turned around and found that his pulse had reached over 160, so he immediately reminded the owner to stop practicing. He was afraid that he couldn't control Hulk, so he transformed and slapped him at. After half an hour, Banner returned to the soda factory and started working. During this period, some people provoked him, but he controlled his emotions well. This gave him more hope for life. As long as he can control his emotions perfectly, he can return to Elizabeth and continue his life. He works as a mechanical equipment maintenance worker in the factory and also works as a temporary delivery worker. After a tiring day's work, he returned home and lay down on the bed to rest. After half an hour, Gilialo. At this moment, his laptop computer rang with an incoming message. It's a message from Mr. Lan. There must be a result. A few days ago, he sent a blood sample to Mr. Lan, whom he had never met, hoping that the other party could develop a drug to inhibit gamma rays. Although he knew it was dangerous to send his blood samples to strangers, he couldn't put all his hopes on controlling his anger. Thinking of this, he immediately stood up, walked to the table and opened his notebook. After a while of encryption, he opened the chat software. "Hello, Mr. Green. In preliminary blood sample tests, gamma radiation was significantly reduced. Can you cure me?" "Can." Seeing this news, Banner felt excited. "But I need more data. Radiation purity, gamma concentration, cell saturation." "Impossible, the data is not here." In order to avoid being discovered, he lied to Mr. Lan and said he was one of his patients. "Where is it?" This news immediately made Banner feel confused and hesitant. Because he didn't know whether what the other party said was true or just a lie. After looking at the photo of Elizabeth next to him, he now made a decision. Home. He loves his girlfriend and he doesn't want to live like this forever. He wants to be deactivated and become a normal person. Closing his notebook, he lay down to rest, planning to send some more samples tomorrow morning. At the same time, on the streets of the slums, a large black van began to drive by. There were several fully armed soldiers sitting in the car. After a while, they reached their destination and got out of the car and walked towards the targets. Home. They were very quiet and orderly throughout. Obviously, this is a well-trained special forces unit. After using anesthetics to kill several stray dogs along the way, they arrived at Banner's doorstep. But they did not rush in. Because according to General Ross's information, the other party was a vicious person who had killed 2 professors and more than a dozen researchers, and was also guilty of treason. But the strange thing is that General Ross insisted that they capture the other party alive. Although they were puzzled, their duty as soldiers was to obey orders, so they could not be too reckless. So quickly, they took out the pinhole camera and went under the door to check the situation. They saw someone on the bed, and that must be the target. But before they could get a closer look, a puppy came over and bit the pinhole camera, so they had to retreat. After confirming that Banner was on the bed, they immediately took out the TNT bomb and stuck it on the door lock. Bang! As the detonator detonated the TNT, they rushed in and read at the bed. But when they lifted the sheets, there was only a pillow underneath. The target is missing. General Ross, who was in the black van, saw the images transmitted back in the video and his face suddenly turned gloomy. It seems that there is no way this can end well. Originally, for the sake of his daughter, he thought it would be best if he could capture the other party alive, but now it seems that it is impossible. The target escaped. At this time, Emil's voice sounded in the microphone next to General Ross's ear. Emil Brinsky is also the captain of this ace special forces. Where did he escape to? Emil opened the kitchen window, looked at the still swinging rope, and immediately knew that the target was not far away. Come on. Chapter 60G Product Appearance, First Order Request. At this time, Banner had already climbed to the second or through the water pipe. This was the home of a female worker in a soda water factory, who was still taking a shower. What? The beautiful female worker saw someone appear outside the window, who seemed to be peeping at her taking a bath, so she screamed instinctively. When Banner saw the other person, he immediately recognized him. Martina was an employee in the same factory as him, and he knew that she liked him. Thinking of this, he immediately went up and covered the other person's mouth regardless of the difference between men and women. But you know what, I didn't expect that she had such a nice gore and smooth skin, none of the roughness of ordinary girls in the slums. Martina also saw that the person coming was Banner, so her face turned slightly red. I didn't expect that the other person actually had this hobby. If I had known this, I wouldn't have been so reserved before. But it's too late now. When she thought of this, she immediately let out a moan. When Banner heard the sound, he immediately felt his heartbeat quicken and his watch issued a beep, beep alarm sound. Don't do this, please. So you like this tune? Seeing Banner's reluctant expression, Martina licked her lips with her tongue. Just as she was about to take action, Banner grabbed her hand, and the alarm on his watch sounded rapidly. Someone is hunting me. Hearing this, Martina's desire suddenly disappeared and she put on a bathrobe. Follow me. After a while, the 2 men came to the back of the door and opened it slightly. I just happened to see a group of Special Forces soldiers walking by with weapons. Banner breathed a sigh of relief after the Special Forces soldiers walked away. Thank you. After saying this, he left without looking back, leaving Martina with a resentful look on her face. When Banner ran to the street, he saw the Special Forces who had not walked far away, which immediately made him panic. But soon, he put on his hat, pretended to be calm, blended into the crowd, and prepared to leave quietly. But Emil had apparently seen Banner's photo before carrying out the mission, so he immediately spotted him and quickly chased after him. When Banner saw this, he knew he was exposed, so he ran away immediately. After running for a while, he used his familiarity with the terrain to shake off the Special Forces and even saw General Ross. This made him realize that it was his father-in-law who was still thinking about him. So he ran away again. But at this moment, he accidentally ran into a group of factory hooligans. There were 4 people on the other side, they were strong and looked not to be trifled with. These people usually molested women in the factory, cheated on him, and had some grudges against him. The bald man in the lead turned around and saw that it was Banner, and immediately his face became LED with anger. "So it's you, kid." After saying that, the bald man punched Banner. However, Banner's skills were not weak, and he quickly knocked the opponent to the ground with his backhand. But because of his limited strength, the other party got up quickly. Banner also took advantage of this time to run away quickly. After running for more than 10 minutes, he ran to the factory where he worked, then leaned against the locker, gasping for breath. Whoosh! Drip! The alarm on the watch never stopped beeping. When I looked down, I saw that it was already over 180. No, I have to relax and stop running. Americans! At this time, the voice of the bald man was heard in the distance. "Come out and have some fun." Banner had no choice but to run in the dim factory again. But the other person was also from the factory and was very familiar with the situation in the factory. So after he ran for a while, his way was blocked. "Watch where you run, catch him." Soon, Banner was caught by 4 men and pushed against the wall. "Don't be like this, it would be scary if I got angry." The bald man smiled mockingly upon hearing this. "You're scary? I'm scarier." At the same time, the special forces chasing Banner had put on night vision goggles and were aiming at Banner from a distance. Banner also saw the special forces outside the factory window and the gun in his hand. Then he turned to look at his watch. "My heart rate has reached 190. You don't understand. There's going to be big trouble here." The bald man laughed. "Haha, I'm a big trouble." At this time, the soldier in the distance read an anesthetic, but it was blocked by a man and fell down instantly. So Banner was released. But at this moment he looked at his watch and found that his heart rate had reached 200. Too late. I saw his eyeballs began to turn green. The bald man watched his brother fall and immediately became furious. "Go to hell!" Kicked Banner. "What?" I saw a huge hand grab the bald man's foot and throw him away. Boom. After ying more than 10 meters away, the bald man hit the machine and died instantly. At this time, Emil, who was outside the factory window, saw a huge green monster appear. "An unknown object has been found. Please give instructions." General Ross, who was in the van, heard what his men said and immediately said, "That's the target. Shoot quickly, use anesthetic." When Emil heard the order, he and his men opened without hesitation. Puff puff. The anesthetic was injected into Hulk's body, but it couldn't even penetrate his skin and fell to the ground. But this also attracted Hulk's attention, and he turned to look at Emil and his soldiers. Seeing this, Amir immediately shouted, "Use live ammunition. Use live ammunition." Da-da-da. But even if they replaced them with live ammunition, the bullets still couldn't break Hulk's skin, but instead angered him. Roar. With a roar, Hulk rushed forward. Bang. Boom. After a battle, General Ross, who was in the van, found that the screen in front of him was completely black. "This means that my RST plan has failed. Damn it, let those monsters attack." "Yes, General." In the factory. After dealing with the enemy, Hulk looked around hurriedly with an angry face. For him, after being suppressed for so many years, he now got a chance to get out and let off some steam, so naturally he wanted to vent his anger. But after looking around, he found that there were no enemies around, so he prepared to leave. But at this moment, he suddenly stopped and looked around solemnly. He sensed a strange smell. It's like a gutter rat mixed with durian and stinky tofu. Swish, bang. After a while, there was a sound of glass breaking and a heavy object hitting the ground. The already dim lights in the factory went out instantly, and the surroundings fell into darkness. But for Hulk, who has night vision, this is not an obstacle. He saw what was emerging. This is a 2-meter tall monster with no skin on its body, revealing bright red muscles. It has 4 arms, with a huge, ferocious eye on each of its shoulders and thighs. The chest looked like a monster's mouth, with a circle of terrifying bone spurs.